Hello students and welcome again to Legacy IS Academy. In this lecture, we will be talking about the rebellious border. A rebel border is what we will be talking about. So which border are we talking about here? It is the border of India and Myanmar. Now this is over 1600 kilometers of border. It is a porous border. And why it's rebellious? Because there are certain issues going on in this border. We will see what those issues are, what India's relationship with Myanmar has been, what it is presently, what are the changing dynamics, if any mistakes that India might have done in the past, can we change that, what should be our approach going forward, all that and much more is what we are going to see in this lecture. So let's get started. Before that, a couple of announcements about the new batches that are starting. So one regular batch, of course, starting from 17th April, which have already been started, of course, but there is another one coming up on 12th of May 2025. So these are regular batches. You can enroll it. It goes from Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the evening. For aspirants who are working professionals, weekend batch starts from 19th April. The only difference is these classes are only on Saturday and Sunday. For the aspirants who are giving prelims in 2025, make sure that you register yourself for the All India mock test series by Legacy IS, wherein you get the instant solution. At the same time, you will be provided with discussion that helps you increase your marks. So now let's get started with the news. So what is the news all about? It is about the fragmentation of Myanmar state. Fragmentation of Myanmar state has happened. See, fragmentation means what? So for that, to understand that, you have to consider a country where the fragmentation is not there. For example, India. We have a democracy, we have a government, there is a military system, and the state, Myanmar state. State means the government. In India, there's no such fragmentation as in conflict, violence, this, that, nothing is there. We are functioning in a democratic fashion, but that is not the case in Myanmar. There is violence that is going on. There is military that revolts and coups and turns the democratic government. It has been historically there. We'll see all that as well. So there has been fragmentation, the breakup of the government entity, because of which it has prompted India to adjust its foreign policy stand towards its neighbor, that is Myanmar. So we have to, since fragmentation is there, we have to basically adjust our foreign policy. And while adjusting, we need to ensure fragmentation means more than one representative for the Myanmar country, for the country of Myanmar, right? So we cannot then take a side of one particular entity. What if the second is more powerful or comes in power and the first is gone? Then what happens? So we have to sort of engage with all the fragmented state that is present, and that is what the adjustment is being talked about over here. Now, why does it matter? Why does our engagement with Myanmar so critical? Because Myanmar's Chin and the Rakhine States, now largely under the non-state control. They are under non-state control. Non-state control means it is not under the control of the government. That means certain areas not under the control of government, certain areas under the control of government. So there comes more than one player. So because of which you have to balance your stance. So at the same time, why again it's important? India is sharing border with it. So for India, stable borders and better trade and transport connections to the southeast in general and Myanmar in particular is very important. Also because Myanmar basically acts as a buffer state. Buffer state means it's a buffer for others to enter India or to be on the borders of India or close to the border of India. Myanmar enters as a buffer state, thus it becomes quite important. Imagine some country way away from India. It will still be important to some extent, but everything else remaining constant, it will not be important as a buffer state. It will not be that critical for India as the neighboring countries are, because they act as buffer state. That is why countries like Myanmar, Bhutan, Nepal are very critical for India's security specifically. Now, what should be done here? Now, what can be done here? Because non-state actors are there, so what should we do? Should we create a barrier, a physical border? So, physical barriers are being talked about, but rather than building physical barrier, what India can do is address the legitimate security concerns. Wherever there is security concerns, of course, you have to address it. but do not disrupt the lives of the trans-border communities. Trans-border communities means if this is the border, people are trans-border means they are staying here as well as here. They are moving from here to here very frequently, right? On the borders, on either side or trans-border here and there, the movement is there. All these communities should not be basically disrupted. That is what the thing is. Now, also because, so why are they allowed to keep moving? Because India allows free movement between for the people from this border to this and back to there. Of course, there are restrictions with respect to the kilometers they can enter in the country, but still free movement is there. So we should not disrupt. If we are creating a barrier, it may so be possible that we stop allowing them, but that should not be done. It is not advisable. India should also boost cross-border trade. Very important. See, if your trade with another country is very high, you both are benefiting from each other, you will not be interested in fighting against each other. You would rather want peace because money or the benefit is coming out. So improvement in trade becomes very important in international relations. So if you talk about the bilateral relations did have ups and downs, but because of a shared historical past, India became independent, in 1947, and Myanmar in 1948, just after India. So similar conditions, both were colonized, both became independent at the same time, as a result of which solidarity was there due to shared experience of anti-colonial struggles. So when you have a common enemy, you can become friends. You have a shared experience. You empathize with each other. So that gave a good start to India and Myanmar's relationship that was there. However, what has been India's contemporary policy? We'll also see that India's start was good, but did it remain like that or not? What was the reason? But let's see first India's contemporary policy. So what happened in 2011 was democracy came to Myanmar. Aung San Suu Kyi was there. India was supporting the stance of Aung San Suu Kyi, who championed the democratic values in Myanmar, and democracy did enter. So India embarked on Myanmar embarked on political liberalization. They started having democratic values. Major role was played by Aung San Suu Kyi and her National League. Right? For what? For democracy to return. And India kicked relations into higher gear after that. Why did that happen? Of course, very straightforward. The country has become democratic. India would it is easy for India to deal with that because there is democracy. When the non-state actors are controlling, it becomes sometimes unethical, ethical issues are there, so on and so forth. So here, when the democratic government was formed, India further increased its relationship into higher gear with Myanmar. Now, if you talk about Myanmar, there have always been changing context in Myanmar. Why? Because Myanmar have been democratic. Now, just now we saw in 2011, democracy was being championed. But again in 2021, what happened? Military coup happened. So when military coup happened, now what is there? Now the military is interfering and the democracy is in danger. In fact, what in danger is being hampered, as a result of which there is a challenge for India's policymakers. What to do? What approach should we have? Should we still side by the democratic government and stand against the military because it has created a coup? A coup means turn of the table. Basically make the democratic government to fall down and you start ruling, is what the coup is all about. So that was India's dilemma, and India's response was quite slow. Slow as in, see, anyhow you were dealing with the democratic government in a particular way, now you have to deal with the military government, so you have to adjust. So that may take time. So India was slow to adjust to its Myanmar policy. The reality was shifting faster, but India's decision making was quite slow. So that is an issue. If you look at India's evolving response, how it has been adjusting to the new context, India keeps on adjusting to the new context. But at the same time, what happens here is, if you have the democratic government ruling or if you have the military coup, of course you will adjust your sales, you will change your policy, but at the same time India needs to ensure that if the military is in rule, you cannot disengage with them. Then there are non-state actors also. you cannot disengage with them also. Why is that the case? That is the case because today military is ruling, tomorrow democracy may rule. There might be a case of non-state actors playing a major important role. For example, in the case of Afghanistan, Taliban is ruling. So what do? You completely do not deal with them at all, or you start dealing with Taliban, but is dealing with Taliban ethical, right way forward? So this creates a lot of challenge. So what you can do is at least keep engagement on with all of them, right? Now, as far as domestic security response is concerned, since military is present, since non-state actors are present, so it also creates sort of a what you can say, let's say security threat kind of a situation, threat for India as well. So the Home Ministry, which deals with especially in internal security, because free movement is also there, so Home Ministry, other ministry, they have adopted a more restrictive approach. And presently also India might move ahead with a more restrictive conservative approach, wherein India would rather create a physical border. But this article says that it may not be right to do that. So what are the challenges and the solution for India? The challenges is that there are multi-parties that are there. Now when we say parties, we are not mentioning political parties, we are talking about military, we are talking about democratic government, we are talking about non-state actors, so on and so forth. So this is fragmentation is there. So whom do you deal with? The idea is to, of course, keep dealing with whomever is in power, but the solution is that do not disengage with others, keep engagement with others as well, because you cannot make an error of judging who will be in power if in the future also. Right now someone will be in power, in future someone else, so you have to be engaged with others as well. And rather than building physical barriers, more interaction, more trade, so that we understand their concept as well, and then we can address the issues, because we will be closely involved in that and we will be dealing with that closely. So India should engage, avoid creating physical barriers, rather more of trade and interaction should be the way forward. Thank you.